There are some huge wrestling shows that I've just never seen. Sure, I've often seen matches and highlights of those shows, but there are lots that I've never sat down and watched top to bottom and formed an opinion of. One of those is WrestleMania 6 from 1990. The only thing that I've seen from this show is the main event between Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior, and the troubling image of Roddy Piper in half blackface. So sit back, relax, and let's old school review WrestleMania 6 from 1990. The intro to this WrestleMania was so different to what we see today. I really liked the opening graphic, literally showing Hulk Hogan going head to head with the Ultimate Warrior. Vince McMahon bellowed his opening monologue in which he compared the constellations in the sky to the forces of Hulk versus Warrior. And nobody does a WrestleMania intro quite like Vinnie Mac. Live WrestleMania 6 from the Skydome in Toronto, Canada, the graphic reads, overlaid on a panning shot of that huge crowd. And then that iconic voice, Gorilla Monsoon, welcoming us to the extravaganza, and it was great to see him. Jesse the Body Ventura is next to him, and he hypes this event up as being better than the Super Bowl, better than the World Series, better than the Rolling Stones. I have no idea who Robert Goulet is, but he managed to absolutely slaughter what I assume was the Canadian national anthem. And then he was on to our first match between Rick Martel and Koko Beware. Look at the state of Howard Finkel here. Why the hell was he allowed to go out looking like this? I've always liked Rick Martel. He looked the part and was a decent heel, and it's always good to see Koko and Frankie on the screen as well. The match between Rick the Model Martel and Koko got underway, and it was essentially a squash. Martel made easy work of things after cinching in a Boston Crab. We've seen short matches open WrestleMania many times before, so I thought nothing of it before moving on to our next match, which was Demolition versus the Colossal Connection. I've not seen a loss of Andre the Giant, but considering he main evented WrestleMania to great fanfare just 3 years previous to this show, it's a shame that neither he or his tag team partner Haku were honoured with an entrance. Perhaps Andre was too heavy to be pulled along in one of those little wrestling rings. The Colossal Connection were tag team champions going into this match against Demolition. Fascinating to see a young Haku here, when my only real experience of him was when he was Meng in WCW and being wasted in their hardcore division. Meng, of course, carried this match as Andre was pretty broken down at this point apparently. He got a couple of illegal blows in but was never actually tagged into the match. Demolition were fun to see. Again, I've got very little experience of watching them previously, as by the mid-90s they disappeared. I do feel they're a bit like a budget version of the Road Warriors though, and to be honest I'd rather have been watching them because they're far more convincing and menacing looking compared to these guys. Here's Earthquake! And this is very rude, but John Tenter just looks like he smells. He looks like he smells like shit. Just one of those fat, middle-aged men you end up stood next to on a packed buzz in the middle of summer who smells literally like shit. That's what I imagine Earthquake here smells like. Here he faced poor Hercules, who I know nothing about and was basically squashed in less than 5 minutes. Always great to see Jimmy Hart and his megaphone though. There is a man that has stood by his gimmick since day one. I love myself a bit of Jimmy Hart. Next, some gossip columnists sat down with Miss Elizabeth to ask her some questions. I've always personally thought though that Elizabeth was stunningly attractive, but goddamn, that blazer she was wearing for this interview was really, really nasty. I bet Randy Savage forced her to wear it. The interviewer asked Elizabeth where she'd been, as she hadn't appeared on WWE for a while. Elizabeth said that she'd been in a advisory capacity away from the ring. Advising what exactly? She literally used to just come to the ring with Savage and look meek at ringside. Beautiful, don't get me wrong, but just meek. She just used to stand there. Next, the show further descended into nonsense as walking limpet Brutus Beefcake appeared for an interview backstage. Beefcake had removed his tongue from Hogan's arse for long enough to give an interview, and I didn't pay attention to a second of it, so I can't tell you what he said. I was interested to see if Mr. Perfect could pull Beefcake up to a passable match, but it wasn't to be. Yes, in this match between Perfect and Beefcake, Perfect was the heel, but it was still heartbreaking to see him having to lose to this complete jabroni. Perfect was accompanied by the Genius, aka Lanny Poffo, aka Randy Savage's brother. Nice to see him here. I'd seen some of his matches on previous random episodes of Primetime Wrestling I've been watching on the WWE network, and I've always found him to be very entertaining. Another shorter match here at less than 8 minutes. Let's move on to Roddy Piper being disgraceful. Now, WWE got scared of Vince's past decisions, and that wouldn't be the last time, by the way, and they decided to edit the next part out of the show. On the WWE network, I assume it's the same on Peacock as well. After checking out the Wikipedia page earlier, I noticed this match on the card and had to go back and check. Yes, they'd cut out Roddy Piper versus Bad News Brown. Annoyingly, I couldn't find either the interview before the match or the match itself on YouTube or Dailymotion, so I had to read a transcript of it. I detest Roddy Piper, honestly, easily one of my least favourite wrestlers of all time. I mean, he's about as Scottish as the Queen of England's tits. In this interview, he's blacked up half of his face. I know it was 1990 and it was a different time, but goddamn, he says the white side is Hot Rod and the black side is Hot Scott. I'd like to suggest 2 words of my own to describe Roddy Piper. Total cunt. The clock shows that we're nearly at the top of the first hour, match number 6, and absolutely nothing good has come from this show yet. Surely the Hart Foundation can drag the Bolsheviks to an entertaining match. Wrong, it was all over in just 18 seconds as the Russians were ambushed and the Harts got the win in a record-setting 18 seconds. The Barbarian next with Bobby Heenan versus Tito Santana. Great to see Heenan here. He's easily one of my favourite managers of all time, although he doesn't have much competition these days as Vince thought the concept of ringside managers was outdated. Hey Hunter, can we have managers back please? I don't know much about either of these guys, but they both looked the business, and the match was decent, but again far too short. In less than 5 minutes as the Barbarian hit an absolutely brutal flying clothesline for the win, almost taking Santana's head off with him. An amazing clothesline, one of the best flying clotheslines I've ever seen in my entire life. It was a sign of good things to come as, oh yes, it's time for that polka dot wearing son of a gun, Dusty Rhodes. Dusty did a promo backstage with Sapphire. I love a Dusty Rhodes promo, no matter if it's here in WWE or in the NWA, or even later in WCW, I could watch Dusty speak all day long. Dusty says that Savage and Sherry are missing one key component, the crown jewel, to deal with King and Queen. I can't imagine what or who he's talking about. As Macho King Randy Savage and sensational Queen Sherry made their way to the ring, they looked absolutely incredible. I thought to myself that this is what 2 superstars should look like in the wrestling business. I've always had a soft spot for Sherry, easily the greatest lady manager of all time, a brilliantly wicked heel, and she was absolutely gorgeous too. As I understand it, putting Dusty in the polka dots, giving him the music and putting him with Sapphire was basically a massive rib by Vince McMahon on the NWA's stalwart babyface, but I think it's an iconic look and fits the WWE in the 80s brilliantly, or early 90s here I guess. And if Dusty was ever ashamed of this part of his career, then he shouldn't have been, because it made him a damn sight more memorable than he would have been otherwise, especially against the backdrop of all the other crazy characters in WWE. I love this phase in Dusty's career, honestly, I think it's brilliant. Next, Dusty reintroduces Miss Elizabeth, looking radiant as always, as the crown jewel in this match made her way to the ring on her own little wrestling ring, and while the match wasn't exactly Rhodes versus Flair at the Bash in '86, it was a fun mixed tag match, with Dusty and Sapphire picking up the win in just under 8 minutes as Sapphire rolled up Sherry. After the match, Dusty, Sapphire and Elizabeth danced to Dusty's music. This was good fun. I loved seeing all 5 of these superstars on the show, absolute legends, each and every one of them, but it was a real shock to think that all of them are no longer with us, and that includes Monsoon on commentary. Only Jesse Ventura and Earl Hebner are still with us. A commercial for WrestleMania 7 played, promoted by Vince, emanating from the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum apparently. I wouldn't speak too soon, Vince. You might want to keep those plans open for next year. And next, a very sweaty Bobby Heenan is interviewed by Mean Gene, as members of Heenan's family have been dropping like flies during these matches. Heenan is always so believable when you see him motivated here. The greatest World Wrestling Federation champion of all time, not my words but the words of Mean Gene Okerlund, is interviewed Basically, Hogan says that he's already done 5 other WrestleManias and won them all, so he's not scared. I mean, he said loads of other stuff too, but I always blank out during these coke-fueled promos. Speaking of which, Warrior does a promo to the camera. All I took from this interview that Warrior's hair is really fabulous. The Orient Express with Mr. Fuji took on the Rockers in a decent match. Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels was such a great tag team. You wouldn't have been able to tell at this point that Michaels would be the one singled out for greatness later on in his career, as they just seemed like perfect tag team partners here, real equal to each other, you know. Fuji interfered and Jannetty ran him off, causing a count out after Jannetty took a throw of salt to the eyes. Rhythm and Blues, aka the Honky Tonk Man, and Greg Valentine are backstage tuning up their guitars. Later tonight, we will be treated to a performance by the men, and I can't wait to see it. Dino Bravo faced Jim Duggan. I cannot stand Jim Duggan. From the moment I first set sights on him in WCW in the mid-90s, I've detested the flag-waving 4x4 toting loser. Earthquake made a second appearance in this contest as he accompanied Bravo to the ring as manager. Luckily, this was a short match at just 4 minutes and 15 seconds as Earthquake distracted the referee and Duggan, the dirty cheat, used his 4x4 to strike Bravo and get the win. After the match, Earthquake sat on Duggan in revenge. Imagine having that crotch so close to your face. I bet it absolutely stank. But then again, Duggan looks like he smells as well, to be perfectly honest. Jake the Snake Roberts treated us to one of his classic promos. I just love his delivery in all of his promos from this time. It was the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, defending his $1 Million title against Roberts, an unsanctioned title belt, according to Gorilla Monsoon on commentary. I was looking forward to this match as I consider both men to be great wrestlers. As Jake came out in his cart, he looked every part of the character he plays, dark and brooding, with nothing but business on his mind. I found the match to be really good until the finish. It started off fast and furious, with Jake hitting DiBiase with a high knee, then attempting the DDT before DiBiase saved himself by rolling out the ring. One of the things I took away from this is when these guys were tangling up, you truly believed that they were actually fighting as well, especially coming from Jake. He was so good at that psychology. Eventually, Jake attempted the DDT again, but Virgil pulled DiBiase out of the ring. Virgil got a scoop slam on the floor for his efforts. DiBiase struck Jake outside, leaving him laying, causing a count-out win for DiBiase. The Big Boss Man versus Akeem is next. The entrances last longer than the match itself, and DiBiase reappeared at ringside to attack the Boss Man before the match got underway. I had no context for why this happened. I assume they had some beef from before, no idea. Boss Man got into the ring and the Boss Man squashed Akeem after a huge Boss Man slam in just 1 minute and 50 seconds. Rhythm and Blues came to the ring to perform their new single. I thought it was very catchy, actually, and a good song. The crowd didn't agree. The Bushwhackers interfered after the song, I assume setting up a match down the line. Rick Rude next, facing Jimmy Snuka, defeating him in just 3 minutes and 50 seconds. I love sleazeball Rick Rude, but goddamn, I was hoping for something better than this. Just 4 minutes and it was over. 90% of this show has been completely devoid of anything memorable. I mean, at least that makes the main event stand out as the iconic clash that it really is, but goodness me, what a dumpster fire of a show this has been. That main event is next, and it's title for title as Ultimate Warrior enters as Intercontinental Champion. It really is the Warrior's best in-ring showing, and arguably one of Hogan's best ever as well. The Warrior didn't need any help getting to the ring as he made short work of it by running all the way down the aisle to an incredible response from the fans. Warrior was on course here to be Hogan's successor, and it's a real shame it wasn't to last, as clearly he was loved by those fans in attendance. Hulk Hogan was next to make his way down, and the crowd erupted again. It was so rare to have two babyface competitors face off at this time. The match itself couldn't have been any better considering the limited skill set of the men involved. They just did a great job of laying this one out to provide maximum drama. I'm surprised that roof didn't lift off the building at one point, that's how loud it was. After 22 tense minutes, Hogan missed the leg drop, allowing Warrior to capitalise with a big splash and get the 3. What a huge moment this was. Hulk Hogan never lost cleanly apart from on this night. It must have felt like a huge scene change for those fans at the time, symbolic of the World Wrestling Federation moving into a new decade with a new leader at the helm. in The Ultimate Warrior. This main event makes up for the rest of the show being so poor. The only thing I'll remember from this show is the Dusty Rhodes and Randy Savage saga, which was a lot of fun to watch in all honesty, and makes me want to go and check out more from Dusty Rhodes around this period. But apart from that, the pay-per-view is only good for that epic main event. So I'm rating WrestleMania 6 from 1990 a very generous C. It's a good job Dusty was on the show and that the main event was so goddamn fantastic.